Greetings everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We're back again with more Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. And this time, since I already gave you the view of the scene of the transformation, I figured some of you might be interested in what the ending slides look like as well. Mind you, this is the ending for the first playthrough I did. There was still a lot of bugs in the game. So there are some things I did wrong simply because the bugs wouldn't allow me to do any better. So this is not by any stretch of the imagination the slides for a perfect game, but I did do the vast majority of the content in the game, so it gives you a good idea of what the slides are like. And with that, let's go ahead and move forward. Life and death, destiny and great deeds, answers to mysteries, the search for one's true path. The mind can comprehend all of these, and then such concepts can be written down as a sequence of formulas, a series of lines, a chain of thought. Still, a moment always comes when it is time to wrap up, to reach a conclusion, to put a period at the end of the last sentence. The impossible rift, the bleeding wound that had tormented all of Golarion for 100 years, was finally healed. The life and soul of the one who once inflicted this wound upon the world became the salve. With the death of the witch Areelu Vorlesh, the war wound she had created vanished as well. The holy flame that engulfed the rasping rifts was felt throughout the abyss. The anger and fear that overtook many abyssal lords almost led to the creation of a coalition against heaven. But like many other demonic undertakings, this alliance crumbled to dust under the weight of strife. Even heaven had never known a greater miracle than that of the mortal who had vanquished the demonic power seeded in him by another to ultimately become an angel, a true champion of Golarion. After the Battle of Threshold, the commander did not stay long in the lands where the Fifth Crusade had been waged. A new destiny and a new journey awaited him. The impact that the commander made upon the world was not confined to the elimination of the wound. Across all of Golarion, thousands of hearts were now aglow with the light of compassion. Songs and legends about the commander spread across nations and cities, giving hope to the despondent, urging people to help each other in times of need. The holy wardens preserved their brotherhood and would often launch raids against cultists and demons who still skulked about the land. The two seasoned paladins, Yanio and Berenger, came to enjoy each other's company both in battle and in peace. Their age, similar personalities, and unusual fate brought them closer together. Whenever they appeared, they would always be followed by a crowd of young warriors and curious onlookers, all of whom craved to hear their stories or imbibe some of their wisdom and skill. Despite all of Kater's efforts, word that he was alive quickly spread among the Sarkorian refugees. It eventually reached the ears of his wife. She had grown old, but lived still, and one day they met again under the stone tree, after having spent almost 100 years apart. Ilandra, who had given almost her entire life over to duty, devoted herself to the revival of the former lands of Sarkoris. Temples of Pelora and other Sarkorian deities opened their doors once more, and the priests were eager to help heal the wounds of the people and the land. Although the commander became the symbol of the Fifth Crusade, there were still those among the Crusaders who were dissatisfied with his decisions. Years later, their words served as the basis for many alternate versions of the history of the struggle against the Worldwound. With the conclusion of the war, Dresden, the heroic fortress of the Crusaders, began to wane in importance. The memories of the gruesome battles faded, the deeds of the brave were forgotten. A mere century later, Dresden had once again become just another northern garrison, and the legacy of the Fifth Crusade began to slip into obscurity. Shortly after the war, Queen Galfrey abdicated the throne of Mendev and departed Nerosian to spend the rest of her long life with her beloved, the one who had helped her see that there was more to life than duty. Quite a few Mendevians wanted to see Darren Arende inherit the throne. The ward stones from the chain that once guarded the borders of Mendev were carefully disassembled one by one. The angels that had been trapped inside returned to heaven to heal their wounded spirits and prepare for new battles against evil. The victory over the Worldwound changed many things, not just on Golarion, but in the Midnight Isles as well. Nocticula spent many days pondering the words of a certain young and fearless prophet. Before long, the Lady in Shadow openly renounced her realm and named herself the Redeemer Queen. This revolt against her own demonic nature transformed Nocticula, severed her ties to the Abyss, and brought her to Elysium. There, upon creating a realm named Midnight's Palette, the Redeemer Queen attained divine power and became the patroness of exiles. The now vacant throne was instantly seized by Chimera, the Ardent Dream. However, her power could not compare to the might of the Lady in Shadow. The Midnight Isles, which had been a tempting prize for many demons, were plunged into chaos. The demon Lord Baphomet suffered a defeat. The Worldwound was closed and the convenient passage to Golarion was sealed along with it. Baphomet shifted his attention to the realms of other demon lords. A cell of the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth was soon discovered in Alan Shinra. The Demon Lord Deskari died his final death, and his cult perished with him. His followers and demonic minions entered the service of Deskari's sire, Pazuzu. Whether Pazuzu's terrifying rage stemmed from his offspring's demise or from his failure, none can tell. The Terabades were adamant about retiring from military service, leaving it all behind and escaping together. But urgent Eagle Watch business forced them to stay for a week, then for a month, then for many years. Even as Anivia cursed their lot, however, her eyes would shine with pride, for she was always the first to admit that Erebeth was not the kind of person who could just up and retire. The hand of the inheritor returned to the halls of his heavenly mistress. It was difficult for him to forgive himself for his transgressions as his fall, but there were still many places left throughout the multiverse where evil dwelt and injustice was being wrought, and the Herald of Iomade could not abide it. He picked up his sword again and rose to the defense of the weak and defenseless. Having rediscovered his own story, the storyteller renounced his fragile body to ascend to Pharasma's palace and become her usher. From that day onward, he took great care of the stories of all the souls that arrived at the court of the Lady of Graves. There, in the halls of the Lady of Graves, the storyteller met the one who had been waiting for him, Kenny, thief of secrets, Aresh Kagal's prisoner, old friend, and well-meaning traitor. And never was there a reunion more treasured. Once again, Sela heard the call of the open road. Even after gaining mythic powers and coming face to face with a goddess and demon lords, she never stopped being a paladin and a wandering knight whose purpose was to help others. Staying true to friends was in Sela's blood, and it is said that even while journeying through the farthest reaches of Golarion, she tried her best to keep in touch with the commander. Their rare meetings were always filled with joy. Having properly fulfilled his duty to the mongrels and, to his surprise, avoided death, Lan was suddenly faced with a choice: what to do with his life now that it wasn't going to end anytime soon. His hesitation did not last long, and just a few months later, he went on a sea voyage to see the world he had saved. Fairy tales and drinking songs oftentimes mentioned Lan and the commander going on sea adventures together, but whether that was fact or fiction, no one can say. Ember joined the Redeemer Brotherhood. She never recognized herself as their leader or gave any orders, but her very presence inspired the former miscreants to perform great deeds. Over time, the Brotherhood grew into a major religious movement. Its preachers took a vow of poverty and walked the roads of Golarion, helping the needy, convincing villains to change their ways, and entreating both good and evil deities alike to be more merciful to mortal kind. Soon after the war, the tireless researcher of all things researchable embarked on a new journey. She had a sudden urge to know how much time it would take to visit every nation on Golarion. She returned after a year and a half with a pile of notes, which she promptly handed over to her assistant. After all, someone had to help her compile the entries for the first volume of the Encyclopedia Golarion. It only made sense for her assistant to help, given that one of the entries was dedicated to him, the commander of the Fifth Crusade, who had made Golarion history. Darren Arende embraced his new life, one that was free of the other. He became more mature, his smile grew colder, and his choice of diversions more elaborate, and he acquired an imperious streak. Inquisitor Leotor's blood seemed to have let darkness into Darren's soul, or had it always dwelt there? Whatever the case, in that darkness, he was free and happy as never before. They say that some of Darren's disappearances stemmed not from another affair, but from his adventures with the commander. To his own surprise, Woljif Jefto became a war hero. Esteem and fame were shortly followed by great wealth. The Thiefling did not let his newfound fortune turn his head, but chose to invest the money in several profitable ventures and one charity for street urchins. Within a few years, his signature style came to include a top hat, a cane, and a bit of a belly. There was a lot of talk in the taverns of Absalom about the time, soon after the end of the war, when Woljif appeared in the city in the company of Count Darren Arende. It remains unclear whether Darren treated the Thiefling as a wayward younger brother or a court jester, but he took pleasure in showing him the world. The third person in the group was rumored to be the commander himself. After the victory, Soseo returned home. Now a famed Crusader hero, he humbly officiated at a temple of Shellin, painted, grew sweet-smelling fruits, and made the best wine in the region. His former kindly smile returned less and less often. He avoided talking about the war, and when people asked about his brother's fate, he just curtly replied that Trevor had been killed by demons. Regal Derinje wrote a treatise on waging war against the demons, both a practical manual and a philosophical exhortation. And once that was done, he succumbed to the bleaching completely. He was posthumously reinstated in his order and buried with honors in the officers' cemetery. His treatise was used in all future wars against the abyss by mortals, angels, and devils alike. Before he died, he managed to send a letter to the commander. Did it contain sincere farewells or a list of directives? Impossible to say. No one was privy to the contents except the recipient. The war changed Grey Boar. He left the assassin's craft behind and embarked on a search for his family. It took years to win their love again, but he had never been one to back down from a fight, and so he won that battle as well. Grey Boar hung his axes above the fireplace and became an upstanding citizen. The transformation was difficult for him, and many a time he would reminisce about the days of his daring youth. Still, there was one joy in family life that the daughter would not have traded for anything in the world: his daughter, Mora. She grew up to be an exceptional warrior, and watching her train brought Grey Boar true happiness. Arushale had changed her nature, completely ridding herself of evil, but she would not dare to live among mortals. She took up residence in a small house away from their settlements. Shortly afterward, rumors began to spread. Some said there was a kind sorceress living in the cottage, or perhaps a reclusive saint, and people would come to her asking for help. She never refused anyone, and in time, she earned their trust and friendship.
And what of me, the writer of these words? The half-demon witch known as the architect of the Worldwound. My experiment ended in success. In the war between Golarion and the Abyss, I emerged the victor. It took 100 years and 1,000,000 deaths for me to bring back the one whose life had been so cruelly stolen away. And it cost one more death. My own. For him to keep on living. I have recounted the story of my life for you, Pharasma, Lady of Graves. Not only of my life, but of the Commander's also. I believe the tale of such an illustrious figure would pique even a goddess's curiosity. Now you know everything. I await your verdict, goddess.
Silence hangs over the boneyard. The Lady of Graves is weighing her decision, and it seems the entire universe is holding its breath, awaiting her pronouncement. Who would dare to break a silence so absolute? Intervene. There, though you are no longer here, your mythic powers entitle you to a say in this trial. Diplomacy 45, I appeal to your mercy. The planes have suffered enough. Do not add to the evil already wrought with yet another act of evil. Your words ring out in the silence. They are heard, considered, and given their due weight.
The laws of the universe have existed for millennia. They are incontrovertible, but even they allow the decider of fate some degree of influence over the verdict. You wrought great evil, while it stemmed from the evil that was done to you. Your actions far exceeded it. Your soul is dark, and there is only one place for you in the universe. And yet, the one whom you harmed most of all now appeals to me on your behalf. I shall send you to the Maelstrom, the plane on the edge of the world. A place to which the gods' gazes do not stray. There you will find yourself. Or you will perish in the whirlwind of chaos that is your soul. So be it. Now you, the mortal who has risen so high as to stand boldly in the presence of the goddess of fate, you have done the impossible, and you will be remembered as long as this universe exists. Go, live out the rest of your life. I look forward to tales of your future deeds.
All right, and that is the ending of the game. Hope all of you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like down below, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.